Thank you, Senator Lyon. Senator Siewert.
Mr Acting Deputy President, today I rise to mark the anniversary, I'll admit it's late, but mark the anniversary of the apology to forgotten Australians and former child migrants. November the 16th, in fact, marked the anniversary, and it was the 5th anniversary, so it was particularly special. And it's at a special event, the November the 16th was a special event in 2009, was a special event in Australian politics. It was the anniversary of the apology to over 500,000 forgotten Australians and former child migrants. The significance and impact of the national apology was huge. Like that to the stolen generations, it cannot be underestimated. However, it needs to be acknowledged that it's only part of the journey for healing for former child migrants and forgotten Australians. It was a very, very big step, and that is very important to recognise. It was particularly important for people who had suffered so much physical, mental and sexual abuse by institutions when they were in out-of-home care in this country. It was my privilege to chair the last of the Community Affairs References Committee inquiries into this issue. There had been 2 previous inquiries and still governments had failed to act. But fortunately, after the 3rd Senate inquiry, the Lost Innocents and Forgotten Australians Revisited inquiry, the government did recognise the importance of an apology to forgotten Australians and former child migrants. The first recommendation from the report was for a national apology, saying sorry and recognising others' pain, as so many had given witness to in the Senate committee inquiries that had been held. The accounts that people told, and some retold to the 3rd inquiry, are harrowing. The years of neglect and abuse that people in institutional care, they were children in institutional care suffered, that former child migrants suffered coming to this country, makes horror reading. Of course, I will acknowledge not everybody that was in out-of-home care suffered like that, but so many people did. So many people told their accounts of the abuse that they suffered, the lack of love and attention, not getting held, being restrained, being sexually abused, forced to work for their keep, children forced to work for their keep. Those experiences have marked many, many people for life, and that is why it's had lifelong consequences for people that also impact not just on the person themselves, but on their families. It has repercussions because when they were in institutional care, they did not receive the love and attention and guidance. So people tell of not knowing how to cuddle their child, not knowing how to look after their own children. And unfortunately, there has been tragic consequences of family breakups as a result of this. So this has ripples and ramifications across the generations. Many of the recommendations that have been made in those Senate committee reports, I will acknowledge, have been implemented or are being implemented. And as part of the apology, some allocations of money was made to establish Find and Connect and some other services. But one of the issues that hasn't been taken up adequately is the issue of redress. Some states have made some part reparation and some redress schemes. Some states better than others. In my home state of Western Australia, there has been some redress, particularly to those that suffered abuse in care. But that redress was inadequate, and unfortunately the state government cut it back, and that to many people was insult to injury in terms of the impact that has had on people's well-being and sense of justice and sense of care from our state government. Other states haven't implemented redress schemes, and that is a cause of great distress to many people. As forgotten Australians and former child migrants age, they also are finding that they need some extra additional support, and I was at a celebration in Perth of the apology on the 16th of November. It was held on the actual day, and it was a day of great celebration, and in fact they set aside virtually the whole day so that people could come and share that day with other people that had had the experience of institutional and out-of-home care. And they brought their families, and it was a day to celebrate the apology, but people also spoke of the need for redress. They also spoke, which is where I wanted to mention the gold card, they talked of maybe providing a gold card so people could access support services, particularly as they age, because there are some significant issues. They talk about the need for ongoing counselling. They talked about the very positive experience that they have through Relationships Australia and the services that they're providing. I also want to note Tuart Place, which is another organisation, and it's actually a beautiful rooms down in Fremantle that also support forgotten Australians and former child migrants. And I try and go down there as often as I can, which unfortunately, knowing people in this place now, a heavy schedule isn't as often as I would like. I am going to go down for their Christmas party. I try never to miss it. And we share that Tuart Place offers also a drop-in centre, so people come in and just talk, seek counselling, but just spend time with other former child migrants or forgotten Australians. These sorts of experience, these sorts of supports are absolutely essential for forgotten Australians and former child migrants, which is why I think it's so important that we continue to provide these supports, that the funding is renewed for these services, because people are going to need support, many of them, for the rest of their lives in some form. It may just be to enable someone to go to a drop-in to one of the centres that provide support, to be able to chat to people, to be able to spend some time with people that have shared their experiences, or to find out where to access support services. It's why redress is still so important. People, I believe, deserve compensation for the grief, the trauma, the abuse that they suffered. And there really does need to be a coordinated approach. And here I will also mention the fact that former providers of supposed care also need to be involved in this. And some of the accounts that we heard during the last inquiry was in fact from forgotten Australians and former child migrants about the response that they had from some of the providers, most of whom were churches, in terms of most of them, I should say, the evidence that we heard, were very negative in terms of their response. I am very pleased to say that changed, that many of the providers did in fact have come to the party and are supporting or helping to support people. However, many forgotten Australians and former child migrants do not want to have anything to do with the providers that caused their trauma and neglect and abuse, and I can absolutely and totally understand that. I don't think I would. I really don't think I would. Some do, but many don't. But those providers still need to make sure that redress, compensation, is provided to the people whose lives they so damaged. Many of the people that suffered under these policies thought that their parents were dead, and in fact they weren't. And many of the parents thought their child was dead. They were told their child was dead. That is unforgivable. And people should never ever forget what happened, because if we forget, it will be repeated, and it should never ever be repeated.